please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody, so we're back again for another off-season recap video, and today we're going to be looking at the Los Angeles Kings. So the LA Kings are a rebuilding team that have had a very, very quiet offseason. They haven't really done a whole lot, but I think when you look at the position that the Kings are in, that does make sense. And they're kind of just waiting on a lot of their young players and prospects to be ready to make that jump to the NHL and see what they have in those players before they go out and make big offseason moves. So it does seem to make sense that the Kings would be quiet this offseason, and they're just a team trying to determine where they're at and where these young guys are now and where they're going to be in the next year or two. So before we fully get into the video, I just ask that you please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Both of those things help out so much and are greatly appreciated. But like I said, LA's had a very, very quiet offseason with the exception of trading for Olli Mata. They obviously picked up Quinton Byfield in the draft, second overall. That was their big draft pick. And they brought in Olli Mata from the Chicago Blackhawks. Other than that, they really haven't done a whole lot. They've let some depth players who are unrestricted free agents leave. They made a couple of re-signings, but it hasn't really been an active offseason. But I think that makes sense. Olli Mata is a guy in mid-20s now who had some good years with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but then was really inconsistent, had some injury problems, went to Chicago, did not work out at all in Chicago, and now he ends up on a rebuilding team like LA, where the pressure is kind of off, and they're going to try and fix him up and get his career back on track. LA does seem to do a very good job with defensemen. And that might be a very good place for Olli Mata to end up. But this is a team that's largely focused on letting their young players develop, letting their prospects, keep growing, keep developing and moving along, and then finding out what they have at the NHL level. So I'm not overly surprised that LA's been quiet. I think they're at a point right now where they're being patient. They're letting things just go the way that they're going to go. And they really want to wait and see how some of these young players turn out. So for this video, I brought in my friend Joe from Sports Phanatic News to talk about LA. He does write for the Kings, or about the Kings for Overtime Heroics online. So he follows his team closely. He knows the team well. And I'm going to let Joe take it from here and talk about where they're at in their offseason. So Joe, here you go.
Hey, a pleasant good day, everybody. I would like to thank John from Off the Wall Hockey for letting me join his video. I'm Joe from Sports Phanatic News, and let's get into it as we talk about the LA Kings. You see my favorite player, Nanji Kopitar, there, and the Kings logo up there. The Kings are a team that is going to be very interesting. I think they're going to be a surprise team of this year, but still not make the playoffs. They're going to be a team that's going to be at least around 500. And that is going to be great progress for them because they're going to have their young guys come up and really contribute, whether it's Bjornford on defense, Cal Clegg, or if it's Turcotte coming up, Byfield coming up in his first year, et cetera, Anderson, Dolan, whoever does well as youngsters. That's going to propel them to improve this year. The Kings, we have to remember, were one of the hottest teams finishing at the end of last season. I think their young energy and fire is going to carry, very good play into this season. And I think a big key to it, their young 26-year-old goalie, now coming out of college, of course, as John and I talked in a past video we've done together, is when goalies out of college about enter their prime in their mid-20s. That's where Cal Peterson is now. He's ready to take off and take flight, in my opinion, as Jonathan Quick's starter now, as Quick becomes the backup. And I think Quick is going to do well in the backup role because he knows, and everyone knows, he's not even close to the goalie he used to be. But he's still going out there each day, lacing up his bootstraps and trying to get it done. And he has a lot of good experience he can show off to the other goaltender, and that speaks volumes and miles for Cal Peterson to be able to improve and become the best he can be. The thing with the Kings that's really helped them over the years is if you look at their top prospects, their top 10 prospects only has one defenseman in Tobias Bjornford. But don't let that stray you because Cal Clegg's a very, very good defenseman. and so on and so forth. They picked defensemen really well. Matt Roy, who's been playing on their team for a couple of years now, is a 7th-round defenseman. Sean Walker, who they signed to a very good 4-year deal for $2.65 million, is an undrafted defenseman. And, of course, now they're giving a chance to Ollie Mata, who's in his mid-20s, that hasn't been able to figure it out. And the Kings, who are a team that are very good with defense, are going to try to figure him out. Curtis McNamara hasn't been anything special, but when he's filled in has been decent. Michael Anderson's a 4th-rounder that they're going to have play in this year, who usually goes by Mikey Anderson. So he's a guy that's going to step in this year. That's the Kings for you. They just pick up defensemen and get them really well. Sean Dursey in the minors is a guy I think is going to be up this year. He's 22, has been playing very well the past couple years. I would look for Sean Dursey, the 2nd-round pick from Toronto in 2018 that they got in a trade, to be up very quickly this season. He had 14 points last year in 39 games with 2 goals and 12 assists. He's right around the corner. So the Kings already have a pretty solid defense in Ollie Mata and Drew Doughty if they can develop him, because I personally believe the Kings, with the big body and the ability of Ollie Mata that people thought when he was coming over here, I think the Kings are the team that's going to be able to pull that out of him, and that's going to give them, as people come up, a very solid defense, because you would have Ollie Mata and not Dion Phaneuf, excuse me. He's used to be on the team and one of my favorite players that was on the team. But you would have Ollie Mata and Drew Doughty on the first line, and then you would have, of course, probably Matt Roy, I would say, in my opinion, and I would say, in my opinion, the second line would be Matt Roy, and I would say Sean Walker, and then you would have Mikey Anderson and McNamara on the third line right now. So they got to work on their name brand defense. But in terms of actually being good enough and stepping up, I believe in the Kings to be able to improve this year, because I think Cal Clegg's going to come up and have an impact. Tobias Bjornfurt's going to come up and have an impact. And once that happens, the first guy to likely get pushed out of the lineup will be McNamara at defense for, say, Bjornfurt. And then Mikey Anderson, I would think, would probably be the other odd man out, unless if Matt Roy struggles. As I said, Walker already has that contract, has really played well, or even Ollie Mata. So they got a lot to play with on defense. That's why I'm not worried at all about their defense. And then their offense, as a Kings fan, you shouldn't be worried about their offense at all. That's where most of their prospects are at. Fagemo, the Swede, is of course offensive as a left winger. You got Turcotte. I wrote them all down here. Kaliev, who is disgusting, had 98 points in the OHL. He's going to be really good. You have Tyler Madden again. Helge Grans is another defenseman they drafted this year. Is going to be a long developer, but a guy that I think is really going to pan out. Elias Anderson, who they tried to get from the Rangers. So all these offensive firepower guys that are going to be coming up for the Kings pretty soon are going to be part of their team. And, of course, they already have some of these good young guys up. They got Carl Grundstrom also in a trade. So you see what he's able to do. He'll probably be on their fourth line with Moore and Lazzotti. Kempe, you want to see Kempe and Alfalo step up more this year, which I think will happen. The emergence of Gabriel Velarde as a good big body center to now have the development of the three-headed monster, which will be Kopitar while he's still there, Quentin Byfield and Gabriel Velarde as your top 3 centers. So the Kings are really set in line for the future and to really push forward and get going here. And I really like what they're doing because they have a great prospect pool and brought in guys like Grundstrom and guys like Anderson and guys like Ollie Mata to be able to try out and figure out if they'll be able to get them going. Because imagine if the Kings get those guys going. Their team is now even 2 times deeper than it was because they now got the guys they signed that didn't get going on other teams to get going, like Elias Anderson and Ollie Mata and Carl Grundstrom and so on and so forth. plus have their own guys they drafted from the prospect pool at offense and defense to Clegg, the Turcottes of the world, the Bjornfords of the world, all to get going as well. So if that happens, that's why I believe the Kings will be a surprise team. I think they're going to be able to get at least 2 of the guys they picked up as projects from other teams to get going, and as always, have their own prospect pool perform pretty well. So you want to see guys improve. You want to see guys get better, like the Dolans of the world, the Villardis of the world. And I think that's what we're going to see this year, and I think this is going to be a very good year for the Kings. So again, I know I went a little long, John. I'm sorry, but thank you for letting me join the video. I love talking about hockey, love talking about the Kings. Have a great, safe, and pleasant day, everybody. Go Kings. Peace out.
I want to give a huge thank you to Joe from Sports Phanatic News for coming on and talking about the Kings in this video. Link to his channel will be down in the description. As always, guys, be sure to check that out for some great sports content covering all sorts of topics. But you know, LA, like I said earlier, and like Joe talked about in his part of the video, they're just kind of, it's about the prospects with LA. They're not going out and making big splash free agent signings. It doesn't make any sense for them to do that. They're not making blockbuster trades. They're sitting back, being patient, and waiting to see what they have with their prospect pool. And they're waiting for those guys to develop, and they're hoping to add to those, prospects and bring in younger players and really build this team for the future. And Joe talked about them potentially being a surprisingly good team this year with that youthful energy and that young exuberance in the lineup of just trying to prove that they're an NHL ready player and that they're going to try and give 110% effort on a night in and night out basis. And I definitely agree that we could see that this year. They were very, very hot at the end of last season. On paper, it's not a great roster, but you've got a lot of young guys coming up. You've got a lot of guys that we just don't know what they're going to be at the NHL level yet. And if they turn out to be, as good as some people think they could be, you could have a surprisingly good team here in LA. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. I still think they're 2-3 years away from really making that push and coming out of the rebuild. But Rob Blake is a very, very smart hockey guy. He's a very smart GM. He knows that you can't rush a good rebuild. You can rush a rebuild, but it's going to backfire 99% of the time. You can't rush a good rebuild. You have to let it happen at the pace that it's going to happen. He's continued to add young talent to this prospect pool, and it's just about waiting for them to be ready to make that jump to the NHL. And when they are, I think you're going to see the Kings really start to climb the standings and really start to become a good team again. So LA is definitely an interesting team to watch. They're a rebuilding team right now who I still think are a couple years away, but they've got some really good young talent infused in that lineup, and we're going to start to see those guys becoming more and more regular in the NHL lineup, and then we're going to get a much better idea of what this team is going to be capable of down the line and how good they're going to be. But it's been a fairly quiet offseason, which makes sense. It's about patience right now with the Kings. It's about letting their younger players develop and letting them grow into what they're going to be at the NHL level. And once that starts happening, you might see them get a little more active out there on the trade market, a little more active out there and trying to bring in some more pieces to that team. But right now, it's all about the young guys. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store and donation link are in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.